survivethrive.net. Times are getting tough for most of us, and being prepared has never been more important. All of our hosts strive to keep you well informed so that you can achieve optimum health in all areas of your life. If you feel that the shows and website are informative, please share this information with your friends and family. If you would like to see certain topics covered, please let us know. Join us on Facebook to help spread the word. You can find the link at the bottom right of the Survive to Thrive homepage. EnerHealth Botanicals is the sole sponsor for this network, providing you not only with important information, but also with highly effective products that produce real results, such as EnerFood, coconut milk powder, liver cleanse, Cocoa Mojo, Silymarin, NutriCafe, and introducing the new 40-day, 40-night organic preparedness pail. A preparedness supply unlike any other on the market today. Supporting EnerHealth supports both this network and your own health. Without good health, we go nowhere. Go to survivetothrive.net and click on the EnerHealth banner on the top right for automatic discounts, or call them at 866-762-9238. That's 866-762-9238. You can also go to their website at www.enerfood.com. That's ENERF like Frank, OOD like dog.com. Enerfood.com. A big thank you to all of our listeners already taking the products that EnerHealth offers. We truly appreciate it. We thank you for your support and encourage you to listen often to stay informed during these crucial times. Well, good evening. This is Darren Craddock back with Health Freedom. And Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am, Darren.
Thank you so much for coming on with me this evening. We have some very important, crucial, pertinent information to discuss with the listeners. Do we not? So much going on.
Let me share this. Anything that we talk about now is pertinent because we're seeing global famine. We're seeing the war against nutrients and supplements, as you and Steve only know too well. We're seeing a global push to basically genetically alter the people through the foods they're eating. We're seeing now the famine in the land that some of us used to warn about almost 15 years ago is now coming to be. Obviously, there's fertilizer shortages. There's higher energy prices. There's everything that you can imagine. Flooding. There's extreme volcanism. I mean, one of the nicest places in South America called Bariloche, I might be pronouncing it a little wrong, but up in the Argentinian Alps is now covered in ash as of last week. And so we're seeing everything that most of us have taken for granted in food production and nutrients, and everything is being tampered with, messed with, or, in my opinion, on purpose, purposely being messed with to such a degree that the weather warfare is in full effect. We're losing the Mississippi River Delta. We already lost the Gulf Coast pretty much, no matter what all of the BS and nonsensical statements coming out of the Gulf after the oil spill. We're seeing global famine being presented, in my opinion, Darren, on a unprecedented scale that's going to ultimately result in the loss of lives for billions, I'm saying billions with a B, of people.
Right, and this is an intentional, preconceived plan that has to have been put in practice years ago, and it's just starting to really rear its ugly head in a way that no one can deny anymore. We're seeing, you had a piece posted on your site today, I believe it was today, if not yesterday, on a genetically modified strain of corn that actually genetically engineers into the corn a sperm-reducing or sperm-annihilating component. So, and that was freely admitted by certain biotech engineers that was there. This is happening on an unprecedented scale. In Europe, they're talking about an unprecedented famine coming to pass in the next 5 to 10 years. We're seeing it happening with food prices soaring daily. This is no longer something we can deny. A lot of people have had their heads buried in the sand, but it's right in our faces now daily.
Well, and I think that everyone had better get really up to speed quickly, because when we're talking about nutritional supplements, we're talking about all this stuff that you guys at EnterFoods provide, EnterHealth, all the different nutritional supplements, absolutely. People have got to understand something, that with the legislation that's pending, you know, we used to talk about this, Darren, when you and I first started doing interviews a couple of years ago, that the day would come when even vitamin C might be made illegal, or vitamin D or vitamin K and all of the different supplements on the Codex Alimentarius. And now we're seeing it pushed for it by big pharmacy in this country. And I want to share something with people. My major concern for 15 years has been the genetic alteration of the human genome. Even when Dr. Ventnor and others were messing around, and obviously last week they announced they had an artificial life form, I got news for you. People saw what were in the laboratories of the black-funded projects, they would be aghast. It would make sci-fi thrillers seem like Little League. But you know what's really problematic is that we're seeing right now the spermicide, and that's the correct word for it, the spermicide that's been introduced into the genetically modified corn. And the question is, if they openly admit to one thing, what aren't they also admitting to? Now let's take, for instance, and I want to talk about this, and I'm trying to do it tactfully, but male enhancement products. We've got the feminization of the American male taking place on a genetic level. We've got the situation where all the plastic, the xenoestrogens, and you remember, Darren, you and I did a whole show on that. We have the chemical emasculation and the chemical, forced, if you will, eugenics of the spermicides. There is an intentional design to destroy the next generation of humans. Now,
right, absolutely.
And that's not the case just in the United States, but if you look at Russia's birth rate, falling birth rate, but then the nations that have basically said they're going to rule the world, obviously we've got the Muslim nations producing a lot of children. So why is this orchestrated against pretty much the West? Well, the West for a long time stood, and I'm saying past tense, stood as a bastion against the unmitigated greed of the those who wanted to have global communism. But you know what's funny? Global corporatism now has taken the place of global communism, and now we've got Skynet, we've got the total, and this is going to be relevant to what we're talking about tonight, we've got the total information control, and the American citizens have now become the number one target for our own government, i.e. all the martial law getting place, all the NATO troops coming in, all the different famous, if you will, men who used to fight the Cold War being assassinated, i.e. Roland Carnaby, i.e. Jack Wheeler, all these guys, not to mention all my list of 114 now dead scientists and rising. But the point is that we're seeing now what I would say the systematic implementation of the plan for global annihilation. You know, how many times do we have to quote the most famous elite in the world to realize that they want the population at 500 million? And what you guys have done, you and Steve, obviously at EnterHealth, is tried to provide the human body, which in my opinion is the most marvelous creation in all the universe, simply because we're created in God's image and likeness. The very attempt to destroy that image and likeness has now gone into overdrive. And ladies and gentlemen, 44 million people on food stamps, 44 million people that don't know where the next meal's coming from, the people are living in tent cities. The headlines on Drudge today, this is the worst housing market since the Great Depression. This is not happening in a vacuum, Darren. It's all happening by design. And what I'm being told just about 45 minutes ago, maybe an hour ago, excuse me, Hawk and I got off the phone, and he was mentioning to me that a mutual friend of ours had just gotten the information specifically how everything's going to kick into high speed this August, and by September, everything that you've known and taken for granted is going to change. Now, the days of going to the food store and paying anywhere near what you used to pay are over. You know, I just in Bozeman, Montana, for instance, king salmon at the health food store is $29 a pound. King salmon, $29 a pound. Buffalo or bison burger up here is $10 a pound. Just the things that, you know, looking at the different, olive oil prices. And then if you get into produce, my wife, I like radishes. My wife bought me one bunch of radishes where they used to be the size of plums. Now they're the size of my thumb, the top of my thumb, and there were 8 radishes on the, little, whatever you call it, bush of radishes, and the thing is, there were 8 of them on there, Darren, 8. And normally I've been, it was just pathetic. So what people don't understand, their nutritional components of all the food they're eating are being systematically, genetically engineered away. So we're basically eating dead food. Now, I maintain it even gets worse than that. Did you see the article on my website today about the U.S. military preparing for zombies and the CDC saying the zombie apocalypse? Now, the parodies that are out there, somebody said, well, what happens to the CDC and the military pulling your leg? I said, they're not pulling your leg, but you can cloak and parody the true intent. And I believe that this is a true intent. The true intent is that when you look at the history of chemtrail spraying, and the effect it's had on the food and the livestock and the people, we're seeing so many changes of disproportionate health issues that can't be accounted for. It doesn't matter if it's mad cow disease, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD, CWD, chronic wasting disease. All these things have simply come out of the lab. Then we had the biological release of the genetically altered virus and bacteria, and I say bacteria with viral components in Germany, and it was all designed to bring Germany in to the fold. So the elite know how to punish those who want to stray from the fold. It goes on.
They do. They absolutely, and they're continuing to do it daily. Another thing, a major threat that's persistent, of course, is radiation. In Philadelphia, I was reading recently how the death rate, the infant death rate, which is normally hovering around 5 to 7%, is now at 48% in Philadelphia. Now, who knows weather pattern-wise why Philadelphia seems to be the worst hit, but the entire East Coast has been victim to the radiation falling out from Fukushima. But then there's been a total media blackout in the last several days of a proposed, a possible nuclear disaster going on in Nebraska that no one is talking about.
Well, I think that Fukushima is a real educational point for most people. First of all radiation, no matter what dumb people say, is cumulative. And so we've got the birth rate issue going on in Philadelphia and all of the hot spots around the globe. I think that people are missing the biggest point. The biggest point is, why did the United States government send to Japan within days the cleaners from the FBI and the CIA? Why was all information on the true level of radiation, whether you measure it in sieverts or rads or centigrades or REMS, the bottom line is we're seeing horrific exposures. Now, I've written books on, 2 of them basically over the years, on nuclear war and nuclear war survival skills. And in anything you look at, the lethal doses that these poor Japanese are getting are, no pun intended, but there's no better metaphor. They're not only off the charts, in some cases, they're above 1,000 times what's called LD50. LD50 means a lethal dose of radiation that will kill 50% of the people over a given time frame exposed to it. And why, and this is something people have got to understand, and I don't know how to make this any clearer. Nothing makes me more upset than people that post on forums that say, well, if it isn't on ABC, CBS, NBC, or MSNBC, or whatever else, Fox News, I don't believe it. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the people who are intentionally keeping this from you. If you think Justin Bieber, there's no contempt I have in my brain or words I can express that. The fad mentality of this country has to be a mind-controlled plot to absolutely take people critical thinking skills totally away from them, keep them entertained, keep them on their Game Boys, iPads, iPods, all the different pads and pods that are out there, but never give them the truth. So what I'm saying, Darren, is that when Mike Adams, you guys, everybody that's out there doing natural health is writing on what's really going on, people being raided by SWAT teams with raw milk, people growing vegetables in their own garden, having the men show up with badges. This is, ladies and gentlemen, a crisis point. And here's what I'm saying. Everybody now has to become an activist. Everybody now, and listen, will it help? I believe only if it builds to a crescendo. radio, but everybody who is starting to see these trolls, these virulent pond scum, slime-sucking politicians voting against your ability to live, they must have recall petitions going. If a sheriff goes in and murders a Marine in cold blood, those people need to get in Tucson a recall petition immediately. But there is such a numbing and dumbing down of the people. They don't want to say or do anything because it's not in their backyard yet. Ladies and gentlemen, famine is in your future. End of story. And just because you can go to Safeway or IGA or whatever, Piggly Wiggly or whatever today, doesn't mean you can do it tomorrow. And so the assumption that food will always be there. Now look, food will always be available, but at what price? And again, this is being totally planned. It's being totally put forth. All you have to do is withhold fertilizer from farmers, and they're in deep trouble. All you have to do is basically raise the price of fuel, and at some point, all those costs have to factor in. And then you have to basically get the largest country in the world with the most cash, literally buying up the farmland of the world. That's China. The stories of Boise, Idaho, ceding or selling 50 square miles to the Chinese. You know, the thing that's interesting, Darren, is this, is that Esau sold his birthright. America is being pillaged, plundered, raped. We're being absolutely ravaged. The band plays on, and I still get the most inane emails a day. Well, it isn't affecting me, so I really don't give a you-know-what. Well, the point is that at some point it will either affect the people saying that, or they're going to see people they love and care for turn into ravenous beasts and wolves. Now, I want to share this too. The zombie factor is a critical word. There is no usage of words that is put out in the mainstream press without choice. I had a lieutenant colonel in my office years ago, I've talked about it on my radio show, who said, every time you, Steve, or Alex, or whoever's on the talk radio, he specifically mentioned me and Alex. I'm not using Alex to do anything. I'm just saying this. We go into full scale slander. We'd use the people that we place on the boards. For instance, Darren, I don't know if you know this, but there are 100,000 cyber warriors, each who have been tasked by their employer, Department of Defense, to come up with 10 individual and 10 definable people that they are responsible for to go out and attack the truth movement. So why are the elite afraid of the truth? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they know this. They know that there is time to, in essence, affect a change. But you know what? They know if they keep you entertained, numbed, dumbed, and everything else down, you won't rise up. So I'm telling people right now, the way you have to deal with this is you have to basically, first and foremost, get right with the living God. There's nothing that can deliver a man out of this stuff that the hand of Almighty God cannot do. But people say, oh, I don't want to get religious. You better get religious, because the people that are planning to sacrifice your sorry butts on their altars know perfectly well who they serve. And unfortunately, I don't think people realize this, but they're being, and I mean this genuinely, that they're being turned into menu items for something that they yet to see. Now, zombies. What's a zombie? A zombie is a flesh-eating creature that's in a catatonic state or some form of control. It can even be demonically possessed. But the idea, Darren, is that now we have zombies and vampires. The central theme for both zombies and vampires is they live on blood. The Bible says the life is in the blood. Obviously, if we bleed out or rupture or get a major artery cut or whatever, we will die without blood. So why then is blood and genetically altered blood being put into the chemtrail mix? Clifford Carnicom, a number of years ago, showed red blood platelets in the chemtrail spray. Now, where did that blood come from? So if you could say this, zombies have an appetite for blood, bloodlust, okay? And so what I'm suggesting, and I really get into this stuff in my new book, and I'm not going to make a pitch for my book, I'm just telling you this, that it has to be considered that there is something going on to change the very nature of man, the very character of man, and the very physiology of man. when you get into the entire transhuman movement, the point is they don't want you and I healthy, Darren. They want us dumbed down, numbed down, and ultimately they turn us into soylent green or soylent goo.
They absolutely do, Steve, and they've been doing a very good job of it, because if all you have to do is look at not only the entertainment system, the news, the mainstream programming, it basically keeps people, or makes people zombies. It turns them into a zombified state where they don't really think anymore. Everything's fed to them, and quite often, all the time, there's subliminal messages going along encouraging people to eat garbage, which actually then ruins their genetic makeup. And people, the organic movement and the health food movement is constantly being attacked. It's being dissed by the mainstream media. And so people who don't have much between their ears, because not only are they not feeding their brains with good nutrition, but they've grown up in an educational system that's been conceived and planned from day one to make them good little robots. So the average Joe public doesn't have a very good chance unless they start waking up. And waking up, in my mind at least, has everything to do with nourishing the body, nourishing the mind with good nutrition, but also good information. So you cannot trust mainstream media to give you the right news. You cannot trust programming to give you anything but basically zombification lines. And so you have to take responsibility for yourself. I still believe there is a chance, but like Steve's been saying, like you were saying, Steve, this is going to take a mobilization and activism on an unprecedented scale. We can do it. Globally, we need to do it. And we've seen, certain things go on worldwide in the Middle East. I mean, in Egypt, for example, 30 years under one ruler, and now there's been change. Now, is that change going to be hijacked? It could be. But just as that happened, we can also take back our country, but we cannot do it on Twinkies and McDonald's. We've got to change our diets and nourish our brains and bodies.
Well, the first point in any type of mind control, or basically anyone who's a prisoner, you keep them on a very, very low diet, number one, of caloric count. You certainly don't give them anything that feeds the brain. And now again, the best words I know are numbed and dumbed down, but we're being fed a continual 5-course meal of absolutely what I would call the demonic dainties. You probably saw the story that Mike Adams was talking about the L-cysteine or L-cysteine that comes from human hair that's being used in basically commercial packaged bread mixes, okay? Human hair. And I got to share this with you. I don't think people understand that when the companies that are listed, there's a whole list of people that are using a human embryo extract, and I forget the name of it, but the point is that even, why would somebody like Pepsi-Cola, why would the biggest food manufacturers be using a derivative of a human embryo? Well, I have my feeling on that. And let me share this, Darren. Cannibalism is coming back. But in essence, cannibalism is taking place on a monoatomic and subatomic base going on within our human body. We are literally having foreign substances devouring us while we yet stand on our feet. We are being transformed. The word transhumanist means that which crosses or changes humanity. We've got basically H.G. Wells, and for most people that don't know this, H.G. Wells was a commensurate insider. When he wrote The Invisible Man, when he wrote The Time Machine, especially The Time Machine, what was it? There was a group underground that raised the people on top of the surface. The underground were called the Morlocks. They were the monsters. And the Eloi were the blonde-haired, blue-eyed people that they allowed to get to a certain age, and then they came and snatched them and ate them. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, we're being devoured while we yet stand on our feet. Your substance, your life, your future, your hope, your dreams, your children's dreams, your grandchildren's dreams, the hope for a better future, it's all being taken out from under them. And see, one generation, very rare is the generation that can see the effect on the following and ensuing generations that have come after them. So what I'm saying is this. Those of you who spent maybe 50,000, 100,000, or those of you that have $100,000, $50,000, $100,000 in student loans, how are you ever going to pay those back? See, the whole system is to consume. It's to absolutely eat up and spit out. Now, that is why in my book title, and I want to just give this title, why I named the book I named. It's called Angel Wars. And by the way, I got mine in. Stan and Holly have shipped out everything that's been ordered, and everything will have been shipped. And I think we're close to being down. Already a third of them are sold out. So it's No Flesh Left Alive, Angel Wars, past, present, and future. And when I say past, present, and future, you know what the central theme of all of this is? And you're going to find this fascinating. I prove it in my book. I prove it in antiquity. I prove it in mythology. But the place that cannibalism plays in the devouring of mankind. And it's fascinating how even this last week, there were articles appearing on the main news stream, main news organs, and let me just say this, I won't call them what I really think they are, because I'm trying to be a little bit tame for tonight, but the point is that they are absolutely, if you will, priming the pump to get people realizing that, if you're old, you've got no more use, so let us turn you into, after we take your organs, a food source. And now we're seeing more and more stories coming out of what's really in some food ingredients lists. And by the way, there are, I think you and I talked about this one time, are there 50 or 60,000 they're patent secrets of what goes into food additives, food colors, and food enhancers. Isn't that right?
Yeah, there's huge numbers, Steve, and there's so much detrimental effects, and we're only really touching the surface of what all of these things can do, because, of course, the laws are not in place to basically make it obligatory for these things to be safe. They're not tested. They're just basically like FDA-approved drugs. They're just basically put on the market. Companies make huge profits off of them, and we suffer the consequences. And we're just talking food additives. We're not even talking about genetically modified properties of certain things such as corn and soy and canola and cottonseed oil, et cetera, which are literally transforming our guts to a point where our immune systems, which 90% of our immune system's in our gut, no longer functions. And then when you drop viruses in the form of blood components in chemtrails, you drop aluminum, which basically destroys the crops. I mean, humans are having a hard time fighting all of these different engineered and non-engineered viruses and bacterial strains because our immune systems are compromised primarily because of this genetically modified situation. One good thing I've noticed, though, is you take India, which has been ravaged by GMOs, the people are standing up and they're saying no. Left, right, and center, farmers are dropping genetically modified organisms, and it's estimated within 10 years, if the current rate of change occurs in India, that approximately 95% of the country will have ditched GMOs and will be farming either organically or biodynamically. And it's taken on a life of its own. And it can do so here too, but we cannot sit back and expect it to happen by itself. All of this change has to take place from activism. We have to stand up and say no. And one of the interesting things in India is that people there, most of them, at least in the rural areas, have nothing. And they have nothing left to lose. They're saying no to these big conglomerates, these big multinational corporations, and they're standing up and saying no, and they're finding seed sources from elsewhere. They're learning biodynamic practices, organic practices, so that they can restore fertility to the soil and start growing life-giving food for their families rather than foods or products that only give life to the bottom line of multinational corporations.
But, Darren, all that fails in comparison to the people that control the weather modification and the high-energy physics weapons, because, again, if you basically increase the UV exposure of specific plants and specific growing patterns. You can basically decimate entire areas of the planet. See, these entities, which I call supernatural, transmorphic, demonic entities, i.e. the elite, they claim their allegiances to Lucifer and that the god of this world, little g, is Satan, that he's going to give them the rule and reign over what remains of the planet. They don't understand. He who hates mankind will ultimately turn on them and eat them. And by the way, the elite have a new game now. It's called Eat the SHIT word. I'm sorry. Japanese scientists synthesize meat from human feces. Now, if this doesn't turn everyone's stomach, and I'm not kidding you, this is, Japanese scientists synthesizes meat from human feces. Somehow, people have got to understand it's in your face, no pun intended. So, ladies and gentlemen, not only is hitting the fan, it's hitting your dinner plate. I guess that means we got to take a break.
My gosh.
All right, now we're going back to the Health Ranger, and one of my sales guys pointed this out. They go, the Health Ranger really loves Interfood, and it won their Best Superfood 2009. And so, asking what he thinks about it, but I'm putting him on the spot here. But I remember about 5 years ago, I got some of this sent to me, and I was so busy, I didn't even call them back because they wanted to be sponsors. But years later, we came back. My wife loves it. It's 2 little scoops in the morning in water or juice. You drink it, and it's 20 superfoods at once, and that way you absorb almost all of it. Even with the best vitamins and minerals, a lot of it gets passed through you. And you've got a lot of specials there on the site for Alex Jones listeners. Interfood.com or 866-762-9238, 866-762-9238, Interfood.com. And give us your brief take on Interfood.
I did give it an award, an Editor's Choice Award. It's the real thing. And not only is the product really great, but the company's great. The people there are great. They get it. They understand nutrition. They understand what's happening with the world, and they want you to be nutritionally prepared. I mean, that's the bottom line with this product. I use it.
Well, I know my wife gets upset when she runs out.
Yeah, it's really that good.
She's a lot more health conscious than I am. I mean, I try to be. I mean, compared to the average American, I guess I'm okay, but I do have a lot of bad habits. But I noticed that when I first started taking it, I mean, it was almost like a drug or something. I mean, there's no speed, no caffeine in it, but it's almost like jolting to have real nutrients.
It makes you alert without any kind of caffeine type of buzz. No stimulants whatsoever. It just basically clears out your system. And it makes your brain and body function better. I mean, superfoods are really powerful for doing that. And with Interfood, he's combined a lot of the best ones in the world. I don't give out a lot of awards. You probably know that.
And the key is they don't pasteurize it either, so it doesn't lose the...
Yeah, exactly. So you've got the nutrients that are destroyed by heat. In Interfood, they're not destroyed. They're intact, and that makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Okay.
And we're back from the break. Folks, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you to all of you who've sent emails, who've made calls and sent your well wishes and been praying for us. As many of you know, people who are out there spreading the truth and getting the truth out to all of us sometimes come under fire and under attack. Our website has been down since Thursday, midday of last week. It's finally back up again. And hopefully within a couple of hours, you'll be able to order online. But literally, they took us out for almost an entire week. And they don't want the truth out, folks. But I want to say thank you to all of you for your well wishes. We're fighting still, and we're not going to give up.
Well, I think that now, Darren, that you've experienced it firsthand, I think one thing people have got to understand, if my show and your show, which obviously you guys took over my show, and Hawk does the show Thursday and Friday, if we're constantly getting attacked, zapped, Hawk's getting zapped with some shockwave weapon, one of our best friends, a beloved man of God, is literally having his life threatened every other day. He's got spooks when he goes to church. He's got spooks trying to drive his wife off the road. He's got threats. He's got friends being beat literally to, I'd like to use another word, but I can't, having the living daylights beat out of them and left alive just long enough to tell certain people to shut up. You see, here's the thing. When I hear of this stuff happening, and when I see this stuff happening, like when your website went down, what is it that's so threatening? And I'll tell everybody what it is. It's the truth. The thing that I think some talk show hosts have got to say, well, I don't believe it unless I see it in the headlines. Well, the very headlines that they're seeing it in is absolutely controlled by the men who hate them. So when you get on people, I've got on guests and had on so many guests, or you've had on guests having me tonight, thank you. You've got to understand, if we're taking hits like we're taking, that means we're over target. And I got to go back to this. When you saw the article, Japanese scientist synthesizes meat from human feces, and they go into this whole thing that the scientists hope to price it the same as actual meat, but at the moment the excrement steaks are 10 to 20 times the price they should be, thanks to the cost of research. But he said that because people want to be green, they're going to be able to, pun intended, shove it down their throats. Now, what did you think, Darren Craddock, when you read that?
I was astonished. It floored me, the fact that they would literally use the other thing. We talked about this in previous shows, and I've talked about it with other guests, and it's pseudoscience. They try to baffle us at least. They don't baffle me, they don't baffle you, but they try to baffle us with science, making it seem that because it came out of a lab, it must be good for you, because it's been synthesized by scientists who, this PhD and that PhD. But the fact of the matter is, you can have every PhD under the sun. If you don't have ethics and morals, you're worthless.
Well, I can tell you this, that from my contacts over the years, I mean, they have 50 ways to cook humanity, and I'm seriously talking about this, that they're talking about in order to conserve green space, ultimately turning people into a food source. Okay, now we saw that in Charlton Heston and the Soylent Green, the movie. And by the way, if those of you who have never seen that movie, it's not, it's going to be non-offensive to 99% of the population. But, here's my sense of take on everything. After 15 years on talk radio, I'm on my 10th book. I don't know if it'll be my last, but at least it seems to be my last. And by the way, in this book, Darren, I've got 115 photographs and illustrations and 815 footnotes. So I get a big kick out of people that don't do their homework, who don't even understand the basis of what's going on in the world. Basically saying that I'm a federal agent or all the different things they say. You see, this is what I want people to understand. When you start to tell the truth, those who live in the world of lies despise the truth to such an extent that they do anything to, further their cause. So, I get a kick out of some of these boards. I see them now and then. They have in-your-face shills who cannot build a case intellectually. They can't build it responsibly. Just like right now, you've probably seen, the big thing is ABC's doing a hit piece on organic foods and healthy eating. So why is it that ABC would take on organic foods and healthy living? Because their handlers don't want people, number one, to think, so, rob their brain. They want to shove it, the S word down your throat. They want you to think, oh, gee, what a green meal. Well, all I can say, and Steve, don't say that word, is they can go to hang themselves on the meat hooks made out of human feces. Because, again, listen, I don't want to hear that they're, it's really, listen to this. Aikita, that's a scientist, recycled poop burger would reduce waste and emissions, not to mention obliterating Dante's circle for gluttons. So, if you understand the contempt that Satan has for the creation of Almighty God, I wonder how the living God, this is something that I think I know how he feels, because his word, the Bible, teaches us this, why he's in the most deep recesses of the farthest corners of the galaxies. Humanity stands unique in that it's created in his image and likeness. Do I believe there's other stuff out there? Of course there is. But whether the Earth is a prison planet or the testing ground or the stages all plays out, that's insignificant. I do not think the living God is thrilled with his creation eating this stuff. By the way, in obviously Hebrew and Christian culture, eating anything that has to do with humans is forbidden. So is it in Islam. So the thing that what I'm trying to say is this, is ladies and gentlemen, it's not only in your face, it's not only in your future, now it's in your diet. And I can say this, if they admit to this crap, pun intended, what do you think they're putting in that they don't admit to?
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking about the genes they're engineering into the corn a while ago. Well, those genes come from a small group of women who are just infertile. They just cannot have children. And so they're taking those genes and splicing them into corn. So basically, that's a form of cannibalism. You eat that corn, you're eating human genetics.
Absolutely.
And people don't realize that, Steve. They think, oh, well, it's genetically modified, just must be science. They're putting a fish gene in a tomato. Well, whatever they're doing that is alien to God's plan is alien to us. It's alien to our guts. It's alien to every cell in our bodies, and we must steer clear of it. We've got to literally, really right now, growing your own food, using heirloom seeds, and consuming foods that are organic. That's the way to go, and supplementing your diet with food-based supplements that are organic too. Organic, you can still more or less trust. Mainstream conventional stuff, so much of it is turning GMO. They're launching GM fruits, vegetables every month, and they don't even have to label them here in the U.S. So the sure way of ensuring your survival is to stock up on high-quality organic foods and organic food supplements. And that way you've got stuff you can count on, because we really don't know from one day to the next what is going to be on the shelves in the stores. And with all of these different floods, volcanic eruptions, I think in the last 3 months there have been somewhere around 20 volcanic eruptions, not to mention all of the earthquakes. I think in New Zealand right now they're experiencing an earthquake every 15 minutes. Around Christchurch, where the big one was a few months back.
Absolutely, and I did, to my chagrin, and if, Mitch, if you're listening, don't ever ask me to do another show down there with the name of the host, but I tried to do a 2-hour show down there in New Zealand. I think I did it about a month ago, okay? And every time, and I got to share this, every time I would bring up the Lord Jesus Christ or talk about what God's plan is or talk about how this all relates to the end times, the host would supposedly get uncomfortable because basically they want to do end times with, I can't use the word, but the word that precedes and giggles, okay? And so the thing that I'm saying, Darren, is I went on record as saying to those guys, I said, listen, in New Zealand, you're headed for the biggest quake. What you've seen is nothing compared to what's coming. Now, as we're doing the radio show tonight, what is it today, the 22nd? 6/22, 2011 or 2011. We're just had another 6.8. Some people are calling it 6.7 quake near the east coast of Honshu in Japan. See, things are heating up, and when I wrote the book, and I want to make a pitch, and I want to say this because, listen, if I made a book about weather wars after it happened, you can say, well, he's just capitalizing on it. When I start talking about this stuff, the mockery from within the community of supposedly enlightened individuals just wouldn't cease, okay? They could not hear or see 10 years ago what I saw 10 years ago, what I wrote about 10 years ago. Same thing with biological weapons. When I wrote Breathe No Evil, no publisher said it was popular. Then I happened to go on a talk show, Coast to Coast, and say, within 2 weeks, things would happen. There'd be a major chemical weapons release in a capital of the world. I didn't know it was Tokyo or the Aum Shinrikyo cult. But after that, it pretty well got documented that we were into a big-time problem. When anybody even began to address, or forgive me, no one began to address chemtrails until I did. Now, why I'm setting the record straight is this, ladies and gentlemen. At least have the integrity before you attack the messenger to go and do your homework. If I can spend 30 years making my position known and absolutely having 815 footnotes and documenting the situation of prehistory, mankind's earliest history, Enoch. And by the way, in my new book, Angel Wars, I have the translation with permission by one of the brightest scholars in the world and the newest translation of the book of Enoch. I have the book of Giants. And for those who are all bent up on this, that this stuff is important, Daniel himself, the prophet Daniel, was told that there would be things sealed, that wisdom would be sealed until the end time. The book of Revelation, the seven seals, as they're open, we get a new understanding. So God is trying to plead with his people. The prophet said, surely the Lord God will do nothing except he reveals his secrets to his servants, the prophets. The Bible says, too, that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So the fascinating thing is everybody wants a human answer to supernatural problems, and there is no human answer. I pray, I'm encouraging people to become active with their voices. I'm encouraging the Christians to stand up for the God they claim is their Redeemer and watch him do great and mighty things on their behalf. I'm encouraging people not to be afraid because, listen, they are going to try and make you lose your life through whatever you eat, for whatever you drink. And by the way, Darren, somebody sent me an email. Do you guys have any of the Berkey water filters right now?
We don't, because they're completely on back order. We've not been able to order anything from them. They're having, months waiting lists. And basically people have been stocking up for quite a few years now. People have been heeding the call. We do still have the handheld Berkey filters. But you'll have to contact Berkey directly because they're telling us that we're talking 4 to 6 months to get Berkey water filters back in.
Yeah, the point I want to make, ladies and gentlemen, do you not realize how shallow the depth of supplies are? And I want to say something, Darren. I've put people on this show who have literally had their lives changed and saved by Interfood, okay? Anything that's truly green, that's got spirulina, that's got the good algae, that's got the great chlorophyll properties, people should be acquiring that now. Listen, why? Because it's going to disappear. I started, and I don't have any apologies to this statement, I started the survival movement with about 4 other guys almost 30 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. And those of you who remember American Survival Guide will remember my ads on the back of the magazine. The point is that what people don't understand is that now the water is undrinkable coming out of the Mississippi. I made a statement, the very first or second show I did out of Johnstown, Colorado, Darren, that people would be drinking water they normally would only walk through. And now we've got the situation with the nuclear issues of tritium being released. We've got all the pathogens being released. And no one has ever, because it's impossible. You remember when you and I did a show on excreted pharmaceuticals and
Yes.
how that would change the metabolism and basically the genetic makeup of human beings? In other words, what does Prozac and Xanax and all of the SSRIs, not to mention the birth control pills, I would say this, a lot of men's problems with fertility and virility are directly related to the amount of birth control, estrogen in the water, not to mention the xenoestrogens in plastic. You remember
Right.
when collagen...
And in addition to all the hormones that are permitted to be placed in the milk and in the eggs, in the meats, in conventional farming. So, men are being emasculated. There's no denying it. And, it's even coming out mainstream now, which is kind of interesting. We denounced it 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And finally, it's coming into mainstream news. You can, in many, many mainstream publications, you're seeing information about different plastics and how they're xenoestrogens. I mean, it's coming to the fore now, which is a good thing, but a lot of damage has already been done. And the only way to basically turn back the damage is to cleanse your body, is to take foods that actually help to rebuild your body, because we've been under onslaught for many years. Some of the information's coming out late, but it's coming out and we need to act on it. And I'm telling people to store food. For people who've never stored food before, unfortunately, a lot of the stored food out there is actually full of toxins itself. There's a lot of preparedness foods, unfortunately, that have MSG, high levels of salt, large amounts of sugar, preservatives, colorings, etc. And, if you're going to store food, you want something healthy to store. And that's one of the reasons that we came out with the preparedness pail.
Well, and I think people had better recognize this. There's no better gift to give than something that's for the body. Forget, new iPads, iPhone. Listen, I have a Mac computer. I'm looking at it right now, an iMac or whatever. But I had an iPod. I don't use it. I had an iPad. I don't use it. I had an iPhone. I think I threw it at the wall because AT&T in Bozeman, Montana, at the time I had it, was worthless. And actually, I do throw my cell phones at the wall when I know I need them sometimes, but sometimes, let me say this, I enjoy seeing them splattering against the wall. The point is that, and I really do, I threw one out the car window one time. The thing is that we're in a time period now unlike any other in the histories of history, I should say, of this world and the one before it. What volcanism does, you know this, Darren, it changes the pH. Hydrogen sulfide combining with water acidifies the water. In order to have optimum health, we need to be more basic. In other words, we need the pH to be on the opposite side of the pH scale of acid. And then we've got the situation of all the bronchial infections that are happening all over the country. It took me almost 2 months to get over having bronchitis, and that's why I had to stay off the radio, because there's nothing I hate to do is to hack into the ears of people that are listening to us talking. And it's really critical that people understand something, that if they will get a hand.
Steve, are you still there? I'm hoping you're still there, Steve. It sounds like we had a little bit of interference in the sound waves there. Folks, I hope you're still hearing me. Hopefully Steve will be back any second. A lot of you have asked me to talk a little bit about the survival pail, the organic preparedness pail. You back, Steve? Hello? So until we get Steve back there, basically the preparedness pail has 5 pounds of organic rolled oats, 4 pounds of organic millet, 4 pounds of brown rice. You're back, Steve. We can't hear you. We're losing you every few seconds there.
Then they're messing with us. It's not me. Yeah. I have a headset and a microphone.
Right. I'm starting to tell people about the pail and what was in it. So because I know that you've seen it, you've heard about it, and you wanted to recommend it to the listeners.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was telling people it has basically 40-day, 40-night supply. It's 100% organic, folks, so there's no pesticides in there, nothing genetically modified. So it builds your body up rather than tearing your body down, and that's so crucial. There's some of the foods in there are actually sprouted that you can actually eat without having to cook. Some of them you can soak and sprout, and some of them you would cook. But it gives basically enough food for one person to eat well for 40 days and 40 nights. It even includes an organic food in there. It has a 10-year shelf life. If you store it at 60 degrees or less, it's a 20-year shelf life, and just high-quality food. And we're recommending that people stock up on these. We've had quite a few people in the last couple of weeks purchase pallets of these, because one pallet will be enough food for a family of 4 for a year. And the pallet price is $179.99. We're offering free shipping on that. If you're just buying one pail or 2 or more, it's $199.99 plus $8.95 shipping and handling. And it weighs about 35 pounds. So, it costs us a fair amount to ship, so we're eating some of the shipping there for you. And the good thing is you can throw it in the back of your car if you need to, get away. And you know that you've got that food for your family. And it's got the food in there too. Also vacuum packed.
Well, and I think that people, now I'm getting emails, people ask me to ask you this, okay? Here's from Diana. Hi, Diana. She's asking, is your supply good? Do you have enough food on the shelf? And are you those are 3 questions. Do you have good supply?
We do have good supply, but like you and I have mentioned in multiple shows before, supply of anything is fragile. It might,
right.
We have supply for this season. When the next harvest comes, depending on the weather wars, depending on HARP, depending on multiple things going on worldwide, we cannot guarantee that next season, next harvest, we'll have everything. Right now we do, and that's why we're urging people to stock up. And we have everything for the preparedness pail this season. Next season, we can't guarantee that, of course.
Well, let me say this too. Listen to this. This is amazing. This is kind of how I see God really getting people's attention. This is from Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. She said, my grandmother was born in 1887. To get to the end of the story, when she died, she left a handwritten message to us in her Bible. What she told us, what the Lord had told her to tell us, that we would know the end of time simply when we ate our own waste material. Now, she wrote that in 1978, okay? 1978. In those days, I doubt many people were, using the slogan that they've come up with. Ladies and gentlemen, they not only want to rub your nose in your own feces, they want you to drink your urine, and they want you to basically eat what they put before you, no matter who it's made from, no matter where it comes from, and laughing all the way. Listen, you're the ones that empowered them, and shame on the Christians who wouldn't stand up. By the way, Darren, we were off the air, evidently, for a short period of time, but I'm getting the proverbial, as Hawk would say, TR3, TRB interference. So, somebody is really messing with this, and I just pray that enough of this would come. And, Darren, give out your phone number, because here's what I want to tell people. You don't know the value of a bottle of Interfood when it's not available. I would say everyone listening to our broadcast should be calling the guys at EnterHealth, and I take what I preach. I practice what I preach. Biosilimarin is absolutely incredibly important for cleaning and cleansing the liver. Our livers have got to be working 48 hours in a 24-hour day just to try and process all of the stuff they're spraying us with, that we're drinking, etc., etc. No one should be drinking water that isn't purified at this point. No one. I remember saying that years ago, and some guy from a water treatment plant sent me the scathing email about all the stuff they go to, and I simply said two words to him, okay? You know what they were. Excretive pharmaceuticals. No offense, but he had to back down on his argument. The interplay between excretive pharmaceuticals and all of the different airborne, waterborne, and foodborne pathogens is a cornucopia of Dante's Inferno. Basically, it is the worst possible combination in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, get what you can get. Please, I plead with you. People didn't believe, they don't believe, but realistically, you're going to find the time when it's not a question of price, it's availability. Same thing in the silver market, commodities, and food is the ultimate commodity. What will you sell? And unfortunately, Darren, Deuteronomy 28, I think verse 53 says people will be starving to the degree that a husband will look at his wife, not with longing in his eyes for her love, but finding out that that's the only way that it'll satisfy. In other words, people will be eating each other. And if people think that's far-fetched, that's what killed the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Incas off, because contrary to the noble, if you will, Mesoamerican culture, and there's a chapter in my book, I want to get it out, it's absolutely important to read. Giants and Cannibals starts on page 355. Ladies and gentlemen, call us at 406-586-4840. I'm not kidding you when I tell you this book is going faster than any book I've ever written. It's anticipated. You can't argue with the footnotes. You can certainly not want to believe it, but you'd better understand what lies in your future, because, again, what they want you to do is eat your human feces and die, and they're in overdrive to bring that to pass.
Right, and that's why it's so important to stock up on healthy food that you can really build your body with. And so call us at 866-762-9238. That's 866-762-9238. Stock up on the preparedness pail. Food for one person for 40 days. Get a pallet of it. Buy it now. Get some Interfood. Stock up on that. Your life is in your hands, folks, and preparedness is the key way. Also, store water, too. You cannot have enough good food and good water, and if you have it, you're going to be in a much better shape. Steve, thanks so much for being on the show with me this evening. And thank you all for listening, everybody. Call us, 866-762-9238. Peter is there right now for about another half hour, and all day tomorrow. We hope the website will be ready for ordering tomorrow, enerfood.com.